So today we're going to be talking about building trust through responsible sourcing and procurement. Now, when I first saw this, I wondered a little bit of a chicken and egg scenario. Which comes first, the trust or the responsible procurement strategy? And so I'm going to have a little chat with our panelists here and see what they thought about this. Because if we think about the people and the practices that are instrumental to building trust, but aren't always visible, who are actually the forgotten heroes when it comes to this? Pablo, who would you say, or who or what would you say is a forgotten hero when it comes to trust?
Sure. First of all, thank you for having us here. It's a pleasure to be in front of you all. For us, it's the people at the ground, the land workers that day in, day out, they go out to the pastures. In our case, we source open range, 100% grass-fed beef, and we care very much of the treatment of the animals. And so those workers that go every day and they make sure that the cattle, the livestock is in good conditions, that the grasses have the height that they are supposed to have at a certain season, that they make sure that the land is not overgrazed or undergrazed, so they have the right stocking in the right paddocks. Mm-hmm. I mean, for us, that's key, and we value and appreciate very much the hard work they do day in, day out, and we hope that they keep doing what they have been doing for generations, and they don't decide to move to the cities or leave the properties where they have been working.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Those rural communities are pretty much essential. Thank you. And Wyard, for you, who would you say or what was the forgotten hero?
Yeah, it's quite similar, actually. It doesn't happen often that I'm at a conference where so much is being talked about farmers, which is fantastic. Mm-hmm. But I haven't heard lots of talk about farm workers, people that actually do the work every day, day in, day out. And if we talk about resilience and we talk about the future, I think it starts there. Yeah. And so those are, for me, the forgotten heroes.
Thank you. Thank you. Alison, what about yourself? The forgotten heroes, the who or the what?
Well, forgotten heroes, I think in seafood, I have to start by saying it's sort of everyone in terms of fisheries as a food security solution, because we don't often think about fish as a regenerative food source that's critical to global food security. So just to put in that plug, thrilled to be here from a seafood perspective, and completely agree with the producer angle. But I'll also say, I think the really committed people that are behind turning company commitments into credible, verified improvements in the water or on the ground. Systems of verification, of monitoring, incentives to improve performance that also aren't overly complicated for the end buyer or for the suppliers or the producers, and trying to focus those in a way to ensure that sustainability commitments in terms of sourcing can actually end up in companies doing what they say they're going to do. And that, I think, builds a lot of consumer trust.
Absolutely perfect. Thank you. And Joseph, what about you? Because we have our examples of food supply chains in this case. We have beef, we have berries, fruit, and we have the fisheries. A little bit different for you. So who would be the forgotten hero for you?
I'm going to say consumers.
Ooh.
I think not all consumers,
just the good ones.
Ones who are actually out there, being curious and questioning about the sustainability and of their products, actually asking questions, buying sustainable brands, choosing more sustainable alternatives. You take the example of free range eggs in the UK. In the 90s, we introduced free-range egg labels in the UK, and it was a small number of consumers who were buying these products that allowed them to scale. And around the kind of late 90s, you got to enough demand for them where supermarkets made it mandatory. Waitrose, Tesco's just got rid of battery eggs. And it was that level of consumers, same with the electric cars, people buying them early on were doing it because they actually cared. And I think people obviously we're in a finance, this is the Economist event. Everything's about taxes, carbon, credits, regulation. Actually, the reason I'm here is because I actually care about these problems. And I think a lot of people in this room do as well. And recognizing that and recognizing there are people who care and those people can move markets, that they're the heroes, in my opinion.
Okay, nice. We'll come back to some of these points in a moment. For you, Pablo, when it came to your model, your business model, not only business model, but your sourcing strategy, you chose organic. Why?
We started 20 years ago, and when we started, the organic certification at livestock was in the infancy states. There was a lot of buzz about naturally raised, and a lot of people were using that claim without true backup, in our opinion. And we researched the organic certification, and we decided it was a strong one. And we started looking on places where grass-fed was organic, and that we can build on that and build on that platform, and started convincing suppliers, packers, farmers to get certified on practices that they were already doing in that way. So in essence, it was capturing a very solid certification for practices that were already there. Sure. And so that was kind of straightforward.
Yeah.
It was not easy to start convincing what the value proposition was on the supply chain, but the organic certification gave us a platform, a tool in which we can build trust on the supply chain, and allowing farmers to capture a tradition of doing their farming practices that they were not capturing at the moment.
Yeah, no, absolutely. For you, Wyard, when it comes to the berry production and sourcing, it really is quite an intensive, I should sit forward, very intensive and complex supply chain. How are you ensuring that it's not just about the day-to-day operations, but it's more about that long-term sustainability as well? What is it that is necessary? Well, not necessary. What is it that you're doing there to ensure that?
Well, for us, definitely, it's complex because the high perishability of our products sort of commands everyday attention, to your point. And but then the cycle of how we produce from plants, nurseries, gives us a timeline of more than 5 years. If we want blackberries, 5 years from now, we have to start growing the plants today. But in that high volatile dynamic environment, where you only have basically 10 days from harvest to consumption, we've come to learn that, we talk a lot about trust and resilience, and we like to talk about dependencies. I shared this before in another session this morning. Okay. And how do you then organize, how do you systemize creating dependencies where, high risk, it's a high risk crop that we grow. There's a lot of things can go wrong with it, and you only have 10 days to make it happen. And so if there's high risk also, then how do you share the reward? So in our model, we work with independent growers. Driscoll's doesn't grow themselves. We provide genetics, we provide the objective, the brand, how we go to market. And the objective is to delight consumers, to really create an eating experience. We are very committed to flavor in the berries because we believe that will drive people come back and will create the value. But to do that, you need to be able to rely on each other. Yeah. Because before you know it, the product is gone. And so how do you institutionalize that? And so our business model is, I would say, truly the secret weapon, let's say, next to our genetics, how Driscoll's has really become a global company, still family owned and committed to generational growth. Sure. Because of those timelines, because of those horizons, let's say, that go way beyond the day-to-day and the next year, for that matter.
No, absolutely. No, very interesting. And I think maybe expanding on that volatile dynamics a moment, Alison, when it comes to responsible sourcing for fisheries, it's not just about the business risk management. There's also obviously the climate risk, but there's also conflict risk as well. Can you expand on that a little bit for me?
Sure. And I would say it's all really connected. The climate and conflict risk is a business risk, I think, too, in terms of long-term sourcing. But wild-caught fisheries are a naturally regenerative food source. If you manage them well enough, you don't take out too many fish, they will come back. And you can continue catching them year after year if you have those proper systems in place. And what we're seeing now through, various scientific studies and predictive analytics, and WWF has created an Oceans Futures platform to try to bring in some of the leading science, showing that climate change is going to be a big disruptor on fish stocks. We're expecting more than half of fish stocks to shift across international borders in the next 10 to 20 years. And when we have these systems of fisheries management that operate within a country's own territorial waters, and they shift into another country's waters into a different management framework, what does that mean for seafood sourcing, for the sustainability of fishing as a whole, and for end buyers to be able to have a reliable product? And also thinking about the impacts that that will have on people and the producers that are catching the fish. If they can no longer access the fish that they're trying to sell to their end buyer, what are they going to do for their livelihoods? How does that impact their family? Are people going to move and follow the fish across borders into new countries? Then you start having migration issues to take care of. And so trying to get on top of these issues before they happen and put good management frameworks in place in the areas where we expect fish to move, and be forward-looking in terms of long-term resilience, I think is really important for managing that risk into the future.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, something a little bit different, but clearly very much related. Joseph, turning to you and your very strong focus on an outcome-based approach when you're looking at your data, open source data standard that you have. For you, trust is intrinsic in this, really, isn't it? And you're talking about the consumer. There has to be an element of transparency here. Can you explain a little bit why you did actually what you did and what you've done in the first place, and really why it's important?
Well, most agricultural sustainability, maybe less so resilience, but to quite a degree is managed through standards. You certify as organic, you certify as MSC, ASC, agriculture, sustainability certified. You don't have the opposite. You don't have synthetic certification. You don't have unsustainable fish certification. And it's a challenge. You look in the shops and either something's sustainable or nothing. You don't have the opposite. And it's right down the supply chain. Even if you're buying fertilizers, you've got urease inhibitors or not, and that's kind of what you're looking at. The shift that we and many other people at this conference are working towards is to move things towards outcome-based management. So you're measuring something like greenhouse gas emissions or biodiversity loss or pesticide ecological toxicity, and you are putting the food system where other sectors of the economy were 20 years ago. Like you buy a fridge in the shops, the energy rating, it's got some are red, they're bad, some are green, they're good, some are yellow, they're okay, and you can choose every product. You can choose between them. You've got the full information to make choices. Water use, water efficiency labeling is the norm in Australia. We need to get to that in food, and what that will do, if you are doing that at the product level, is connect the whole supply chain. You'll have to start, everyone in the supply chain is going to have to be measuring their environmental impacts. Farmers, food companies are going to be passing that information along, and from that you've got the information to base a transformation of the food system on towards an improvement in the outcome that you care about, towards net zero, for example. and that's the focus. Obviously, it does rely heavily on trust, but there are many ways to certify. We've heard from in the previous sessions, we've heard from lots of companies who are certifying, adhering to standards, and it's pretty developed. I would say the kind of trust infrastructure in this area, but. Yeah, that is the outcome practice-based management distinction.
Perfect. Can I just ask one quick question, though? At the moment, we hear farmers and just everyone in general has audit fatigue. They're kind of fed up to the back teeth with it. Are we going to arrive to that same place when it comes to data?
I think... I mean, obviously, yes. I think we heard from Weetabix earlier. They were saying that actually they've been doing this for a long time. They've been measuring their carbon footprint for a while. They've just been going at it year after year. And I think the level of data, the kind of minimum level of data, is not onerous. But I think we now need to move to a place where we can use that data and start giving back to farmers, giving back advice, benchmarking. How do you compare to your peers? What's the yield frontier? What's the sustainability frontier? How can you get there? Like, how can we share best practices? And I think if we can go from just quantifying, which is a really good start, and we should focus on that, to giving back to farmers, that will help trust, and it will also boost the efficiency of the whole system.
Yeah, I was going to build on that. Yes, there's fatigue on certain aspects that the supply chain requests to collect, but when the farmer is seeing results, productivity results based on new system practices, a real life example. These organic ranchers that we have been working for 2 decades, they have for the past. A good amount of them for the past, they were extensive grass ranching, and for the past 5-6 years, they have transitioned a good portion of their lands to rotational grazing, and they're starting to measure the impact, and they're starting to see the output, like natural grasses that were not there that are now coming back. Biodiversity of fauna that was there, birds, different fauna that was there that are now coming back. They're seeing how their soil is more resilient to climate extreme conditions. So when they are past those 2-3 years of that experience, they want the data. We are seeing that they want we work with some scientists that go and do annual measurements as well as long-term measurements, like every 5 years. We are in the beginning of that journey, but we are seeing farmers eager to see their data because they're seeing the results, and they're seeing less input, more kilograms per hectare, more a faster cycle. They used to turn the animal to harvest within 30 to 30 plus months, and now with this practice is being like 24 plus. So they're seeing real results, and because of that, they are eager to keep on the journey and keep on collecting the data. And so I think if there's value added for the farmer, then they don't get that exhausted with the data collection.
Yeah, no, so would you say something similar, Wyard?
Yeah, no, I think everybody is on the mission to do more with less, and so we are as well. And data is critical as a foundation to do that. But for us, it's really about how do you activate the data? How do you bring it to work? How do you create adoption amongst growers for the new solutions that you bring? And, seeing is often believing, right? So, data in itself doesn't do much. But modeling the way, and, we are, for example, having a sustainability center in Portugal, which is a collaboration with local governments, with the growers themselves, with us, where we're using data and we're inviting AgTech to come in and demonstrate what they can do, and then growers can adopt these solutions. And I believe growers are very eager to do that. Their cost is rising, they want to be more efficient, but we have to model the way. And so I am worried about all the schemes that we keep on deploying towards these growers or farmers for that matter, because we're creating a lot of complexity downstream.
Yeah.
And that complexity is not helping us to bring the best fruit, in our case, to the market in only 10 days.
Needs to be quick.
And it slows everything down, and that increases food waste. And then you're really getting a negative cycle of what you don't want to accomplish. Yeah. And so how do we make it more seamless? How do we connect faster? Data should be absolutely at the foundation of that, where we can't be busy fools, as I'd like to call that.
No, fair enough. Alison, is it the similarities in fishery?
In the sense that data is the foundation of everything moving forward, yes, absolutely. I think one of the key differences in fisheries is we actually don't have good data.
No.
We have fisheries in general are under monitored. We, in many cases, don't have good reporting of what's being caught, where it's caught, how it's caught. And those are going into international supply chains. And so collecting good data, enough data, accurate data that then can transmit through the full supply chain, I think is really critical then for buyers being able to make good decisions, having traceability along the full supply chain that can tell you what exactly you're sourcing and what the impacts are, and connecting into some of the work on, environmental outcomes as a whole, and linking direct impacts into those outcomes that can be monitored, so that companies can get a better sense of what they can do to help reduce risk, weed out illegality, and then help support more sustainable practices is really needed.
Yeah, perfect. The question has just come up here, and I think we were speaking about it earlier a little bit in a way. To what extent is measuring outcomes using imperfect models a distraction from generating positive action, which we know will deliver positive outcomes? Joseph, can I ask you to take that first, please?
Yeah, I think we don't want to use outcome-based management for everything. There are some things I would say, like pesticide regulation, that you probably want to use standards-based management for. And the reason for that is some pesticides are so risky, like organochlorides, for example, are so risky that you don't really want to have them applied in any quantities. You just want a simple rule that takes them out the system. But other things, greenhouse gas emissions, biodiversity loss, I would say, water use, eutrophication, a number of issues are actually pretty complicated, very complicated. You look at greenhouse gas emissions, there's probably 30 drivers of that for a typical farm, 50. They vary massively across space. So sometimes eutrophication matters, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it matters a lot more. And I think only with proper modeling and quantification can you actually track these things and quantify them. But I don't think it's appropriate for everything. Issues that are, you want simple rules, are very hard to quantify, are very risky. You want to use standards-based management for them. But outcome-based management is not just the right way to go. It's able to drive really effective results for a number of issues, even if the models are a bit imperfect. And some research that I've yet to publish, but is coming soon, finds that if we did deploy outcome-based management for the full food supply chain, you could realize about a 40% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, considering the whole supply chain. So anyone that's plugging away at doing this, you're probably doing the right thing.
Okay, interesting. Time is short, and I would like our panelists actually to just give a bit of a closing remark, a closing key takeaway that they would like you all in the room to go home with. I will start with you because you're here.
Sure. I think that picking on the what Joseph said about the consumer and the relevancy of the consumer making an impact. I think that brands with a clear vision and supply chains that are trustworthy can make an impact, and so the consumer they should be thriving to educate the consumer and communicate to the consumer what it does matter for us. And We know for a fact that when our consumer goes to buy our product, it's a challenge to figure out all the different attributes, what they mean. And so I think we have a responsibility to communicate better, to educate, and to relate to what we think are the good practices. That for me is very relevant.
Thank you. So simplicity, clarity on the nose. Wyard, lasting comment from you.
Well, definitely, I echo simplicity. We've had that in our brief conversation before. I think we will all benefit from simplifying the value chain as much as we can. And in addition, we do need to look at the economic equation. It has to make business sense for all involved, and specifically for growers, or in our case, or farmers in general. They are the ones that are taking the most risk, and they should be able to take the most reward back home as well. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. And to do that takes a lot of effort. It takes all of us here in the room. But let's look at the opportunity. We have a massive responsibility, but it also creates an opportunity for us to make meaningful change.
Sure.
And it's not going to be an easy journey. But if we all commit and we take our responsibility, we will get there.
Yeah, we keep plugging away. Last thoughts from you, please, Alison.
I think overall being really strategic and focused along the simplification theme on what will truly deliver positive outcomes, both from a business perspective and from environmental, social perspectives. I think it's all aligned. And there are so many different standards, frameworks, regulations, but generally we know what to do, but there's not enough capacity and funding going into the right things to really move the needle, I think. And the less we can get distracted and work better together and across different sectors and commodities to really focus on those things that are going to add value and put global money toward them, I think could help make a difference.
Okay, thank you, Alison. And your last thoughts, please, Joseph, kind of bringing all these simplicity, efficiency, trust in together for what you think.
Yeah, like as boring as it sounds, I think we just need to keep plugging away at quantifying environmental impact, carbon footprints. We need to just create that infrastructure and deliver. We need to ignore the fads, the sustainability fads, the next trend, the next label, the next buzzword. And we need to just cut through and actually deliver what we need to achieve, which is to stop climate change from getting substantially worse, end deforestation, prevent excessive overfishing. We just need to focus on these goals and just keep plugging away at it and ignore the noise that's all around us.
I think that's a very sensible final remark for everybody here in the room. I'd like to thank all my panelists today, and if we could give them a warm round of applause.